Hello, everybody. We're just getting set up. We were going to be hosting this in Lindsay Hall, but your resident council is meeting in Lindsay Hall right now. So we had to do some last minute adjustments, and we're going to get rolling in just a minute. We have Shirley, and we have Marion, and we have Ann in the audience now, and one of my two co-hosts just walked in. So we're going to be going in just a minute here. We're going to let Marion get settled. And for those of you watching at home, if you enjoy it today, be aware that it's going to rebroadcast this exact show tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Is that right, Scott? 11 o'clock tomorrow? So tell your friends. But here we are, the new format for Trivia with Mike, and welcome everybody. I hope we all have a good time today. Going with the new format, we do in fact have co-hosts now. My very first week of co-hosts is Heidi and Anna, our marketing team.
Yay!
Hey, there you go. There you go. They're going to be playing along with our studio audience today and seeing if they can get any of the answers too. So here we go. But first, we want to ask Heidi and Anna a couple of questions so that, you know, more guest hosts will come in the future. They'll see that it's more than just answering questions. They'll let us know what's going on. So let me begin. Yesterday, and for those of you watching this on Friday, I mean Wednesday, there were large sourdough pretzels in every area that staff congregate. And it was a celebration. What was that all about?
So we are very proud to share that we are 100% sold in all of our independent living across East Castle Place. So that means our existing apartment homes as well as our future apartment homes that will be ready sometime next year. So Life Care Services sent us from the Milwaukee Pretzel Company 100 pretzels for being 100% sold. And you know, it takes such a team effort to achieve that feat, so it was really nice to be able to share that with all of East Castle Place's employees.
And where are the pretzels?
I think they might have all been
I
eaten.
think they're all gone.
You're a day late and $1 short. But they were wonderful, wonderful.
Oh, rub it in.
And actually, there were like things that you would put on it, like cheese sauces and things like that.
Oh.
I laughed because it was 13 pounds of cheese.
Oh
that
my
they sent me.
goodness.
13
What?
pounds.
When did this happen? Where did it happen? We missed it.
They were quiet.
Well, that's why they were sourdough and not hard pretzels. We didn't want anyone to hear us chewing. But now, I know that part of the reason for your success is that you keep ongoing communication, not just with our existing residents, but with potential residents. And part of that process involves something that the two of you hosted on Tuesday night. Tell us about that.
So we were very fortunate, thanks to you, Mike Brewer,
Yes.
for finding us this lovely venue in South Milwaukee called the Bucyrus Club. So we were able to connect with John Gerda, who many of you I know love and enjoy. So we had him come and speak on smokestacks on the lakeshore. So we talked about kind of the history of that area, and then residents and future residents and prospective residents were able to enjoy the Bucyrus Club's museum, which is on the second floor of that building. And just such a neat space. So we love getting our current residents together with our future residents to start to form those relationships, and there'll be much more of that to come. But we're also just so appreciative of all of the residents for everything that you've been going through here. We know construction has its challenges and its headaches, so we're just very appreciative of you putting up with us, and I think, you know, very excited for us all to be able to enjoy a beautiful new community in just a few more months.
That's really good. Congratulations to both of you. Now this means there's nothing for you to do until next summer.
Absolutely
Right,
nothing.
it's-
That's why we're here on trivia.
They'll be working from home, I think, for a little while now. So that's why they're on trivia. So there you go. And speaking of trivia, let's take a look at some trivia, shall we? Let's move on. First of all, a brand new tradition. Actually, it's been going on for about half a year now. Birthdays of the week. You'll see Bill Johnstone was September 5th, which was actually a week ago. But we have Nancy and we have Charlotte who were this week as well. September is kind of a slow month for birthdays here at East Castle. There's another one later this month, and we'll be adding it to the list, Beverly Blake. But if you see any of these birthday kids in the corridors, wish them happy birthday, and be sure to do so from all of us here at Quick Trivia as well. Should we move into some trivia?
Okay.
Let us do so. We're going to talk about the Pillsbury Baking Company. Minneapolis, Minnesota-based company that was one of the world's largest producers of grain and other foodstuffs until it was bought out by General Mills in 2001. General Mills, unfortunately, had to sell off some of the products, so the company kept the rights to refrigerated and frozen Pillsbury products. One of the things about Pillsbury is that they were a precursor and really bought into marketing, branding, if you will. And they not only came up with this wonderful logo that all of you know about, but they came up with a mascot, the Pillsbury Doughboy. What a lot of people don't know is that the Pillsbury Doughboy actually has a name. And my question to you is, what is the name of the Pillsbury Doughboy? What is the formal name? I'm not sure it was a baptismal name, but it's the formal name of the Pillsbury Doughboy. Does anybody have a guess?
Phil.
No.
He looks like a Jeff to me. Maybe Jeff?
He actually has a first and a last name.
Oh, wow.
A first and a last name.
Doughboy.
Not a bad guess. Not a bad guess. Any other guesses?
Give us a hint. Dobie.
Dobie. No, I'm sorry. Once again, there's a first and a last name. The first name, maybe you'll get it if I give you this. The first name is Poppin'.
Poppin' Fresh.
Poppin' Fresh, the name of the Pillsbury Doughboy. Very good. Poppin' Fresh.
Job, ladies.
Branding and marketing, and that has what has led to the overwhelming success
I
of
love
Pillsbury. Mr. Poppin' Fresh.
I love it.
So the next time you see him, call him by name.
I love that.
If you're a big fan of Ghostbusters, you know Poppin' Fresh had a huge role in that. He was brought to life and became 50 stories tall and was walking down the streets of Manhattan. But there you have it. Poppin' Fresh is the name of the Pillsbury Doughboy. Question number 2. We're going to be talking a little bit about the Beatles. The Beatles, a world-famous recording band, actually redefined rock and roll in the 1960s. Everybody knows John, Paul, George, and Ringo. This picture, in fact, played into conspiracy theories, if you will. It was the cover of their Abbey Road album. And actually, their studios are right down the road. Abbey Road Studios are right here. They had been in an all-night recording session for their new album. And the photographer showed up and said, what are we going to do? And they were so exhausted from recording for like 18 hours straight, they just said, let's go outside and take a picture. And they did, and there it is. Many people years later were thinking Paul McCartney is dead. Well, we know 60 years later he wasn't dead then because he's not dead now. But people were saying that this was a clue from the Beatles themselves that the conspiracy was true. George was dressed as a gravedigger, Ringo was dressed as a minister, and John was dressed as the Lord God Almighty. Paul is the only one without shoes. So they thought that tied into the conspiracy theory and that there were all kinds of clues. Clearly that did not turn out to be the case. However, many people actually know that there were more people to the band before they became world famous. There always were only 4, but the drummer changed a couple of times. People know that Peter Best preceded Ringo, and the reason is the manager of the Beatles didn't think that Peter Best was good enough to be the drummer once they started doing live performances. They just thought that he got a little bit stage struck
He
and
wasn't the
things like
best.
that. So he wasn't the best. Very good.
Play it simple.
What a lot of people don't know is that somebody actually preceded Peter Best, and believe it or not, quit the band. Quit the band before they became world famous. And you'll see again, John Paul George and Peter Best were the original, when they started, they were called the Journeymen at that time. But there was a drummer before Peter Best by the name of Tommy Moore. They were John Paul George and Tommy Moore, and at that time they were known as the Silver Beatles. My question to you, Tommy Moore was not kicked out of the band because the manager thought he wasn't good enough. He quit the band. He quit the band. Peter Best was brought in. Peter Best was deemed to be not good enough. Ringo Starr was brought in, and the rest is history. Why did Tommy Moore quit the Beatles?
Personality problem.
Actually, no.
Medical.
Although I will say, Tommy Moore was married, and his wife wasn't really overly fond of the bandmates, John Paul and George. I'm sure. Sorry, Shirley, you were going to say?
He went to another band.
Actually, that's not why he quit the band. No. When they were the Silver Beatles, this was an evening and a weekend gig for the four of them. Tommy Moore in particular had another job, and his wife felt that playing with the Silver Beatles was getting in the way of his other job. She felt the other job was good, stable income. She didn't want him to quit, and as a result of that, he quit the band. What did he do before? The famous Tommy Moore, who could have been a bazillionaire had he stayed with the Beatles, was a forklift driver.
Wow.
At
That's
in
a stable, good job, though.
It is
I
a
mean,
stable,
I get
good
it.
job. He was a forklift driver in a factory in Liverpool. His wife wanted him to keep that job, and as a result, he quit the Beatles, and he gave up $1 billion.
Wow.
There you have it.
Bummer.
That was question number 2. Question number 3. We're going to take a little bit of a look at silent movies. And I have to clean up. Here we go. Silent movies. Silent movies, as you all know, was the precursor to Hollywood as we know it today. Movies actually started in the late 19th century. The Nickelodeons with the little turning wheels and things like that were actually the very first movies. Technical advancements and the Industrial Revolution enabled the creation of the first motion pictures and projectors. After a few years of experimentation, filmmakers in Europe and the United States started producing their short films. In the beginning, they were only a minute long. Didn't take long, though, and they became feature-length movies. And it was powered because of the rising public interest. Large profit margins were in the movies at that time. Cost very little to make them, and as a result, they made tons of money when they made arrangements for people to view them. Again, Nickelodeons was one of the very first opportunities for people to view these. Then, of course, American and European cities started the trend of movie theaters. That's when movies went to about 30 minutes in length. There were some wonderful, wonderful movies done during that silent era. The original Ben-Hur was a classic movie at that time. Just some wonderful things. Nosferatu, A Trip to the Moon, The Birth of a Nation, The Thief of Baghdad, just a wonderful movie. Battleship Potemkin, The Phantom of the Opera, Metropolis, a movie that I personally have seen about 10 times. Great, great movie. The Passion of Joan of Arc in 1928. Movies obviously went into talkies. However, it took about a 2 or 3 year period for that to happen. My question to you, what happened in silent movies on November 23rd, 1930? It was it took place in 1913 in a silent film called A Noise from the Deep. It involved an American actress and an American actor named Fatty Arbuckle. It became a classic comedy routine that appears in Hollywood movies to this day. If you're a fan of it's a big world. You see it a couple times in there. Just a fabulous movie. What happened in 1913, a movie called A Noise from the Deep that became a comedic staple, physical comedy that has lasted to this day? Any guesses? Physical comedy, a comedic actress did this to an actor. In 1913, a silent film called A Noise from the Deep.
Pie in the face.
Pie in the face! There you have it! Congratulations!
I didn't hear. What did you say?
A pie in the face.
Oh,
She threw a pie in the face of Fatty Arbuckle, and it has retained its character to this day.
Wow.
Classic.
Wow.
There you go. We're going to continue on Hollywood trivia for just one more question. Who in the world was William Boyd, and how did he get so rich? Does anybody recognize the name William Boyd? He was born in 1895. He died September 12th, 1972. He was, in fact, an American actor, best known for one character that he played. One character that he played. That particular character allowed him to become a bazillionaire. Any guesses? He was very popular with the movies that he did in the late 30s and the 40s. He became a bazillionaire because he bought the rights to those movies when they stopped being made, and he turned them into television shows. An American Western. Any guesses who William Boyd is? Hopalong Cassidy. Does anybody recognize the name Hopalong Cassidy? Very good. Hopalong Cassidy, again, really became famous on television. He was a huge actor in the day, but television is what really made him. In fact, in the 1920s, before Hopalong Cassidy, he was earning a salary of over $100,000 a year. You can imagine in the 1920s, that was the equivalent of millions today. He actually was offered the supporting role of Red Connors in the first Hopalong Cassidy movie. He turned it down, and he asked if he could be Hopalong Cassidy. Hollywood smartly said, sure. And it became a staple of what is known as B westerns. A movies have the best actors, the most money used in making them. B westerns, they have, role players, doesn't cost quite as much to make because it doesn't cost people as much to do it. Eventually, Boyd mortgaged everything he owned to buy the rights to his films and license them to NBC television, where they were edited to broadcast length and became an instant hit. In 1949, Hopalong Cassidy became the first network television Western series, and the films earned Boyd millions.
Wow.
That, however, isn't really why he became a bazillionaire. What did Hopalong Cassidy do that revolutionized marketing to this day? And because he had the rights to all of it, he became a bazillionaire as a result of it. It involves little children going to school,
Lunchboxes?
Yes! Hopalong Cassidy lunchboxes! And there you have it.
Saturday.
From lunchboxes, it went to thermoses, it went to toys, it went, you could see Hopalong Cassidy on everything. But William Boyd as Hopalong Cassidy was the very first lunchbox that tied into a television show, and the rest is history. He became fabulously wealthy as a result of it. And there you have it. That's the answer to question number 3. We're going to go off now. We're going to talk a little bit about politics. My question to all of you: who famously said, "The nattering nabobs of negativism"? And who was he talking about? The nattering nabobs of negativism. Within 2 years after this, he was in jail. He was in jail for taking kickbacks from the farming industry in the state of Maryland, where he had been a governor. But this quote was not when he was a governor. Who was Richard Nixon's first vice president?
Oh, you're Agnew.
Spiro T. Agnew. There you have it. Spiro T. Agnew. He famously coined the phrase, "the nattering nabobs of negativism," to describe the people that he felt were not supporting Nixon's agenda at that time, and he specifically singled out the press. November 9th, 1918 was his birth date. September 17th, 1996 was his death date. He was the 39th Vice President of the United States, serving from 1969 until his resignation in 1973. He actually was the second Vice President to resign the position. The other was John C. Calhoun. And again, he ended up going to jail. He resigned the vice presidency because of the controversy over the criminal investigation. He was convicted of taking, well, here we go. He was investigated by the United States Attorney for the District of Maryland on suspicion of criminal conspiracy, bribery, extortion, and tax fraud. Agnew took kickbacks from contractors during his time as Baltimore County Executive and Governor of Maryland. And if I'm not mistaken, the kickbacks had to do with the dairy industry. A lot of people think he went to jail because of Watergate, but he was safely in jail long before Watergate, so he was not a part of that conspiracy. Next, question number 6. If I can get to where we are here, here we go. Auto racing. You all know I like to do a little bit on sports, so we're going to take a little bit of a look at that. We're going to tell you a little bit about auto racing. First of all, it has many different names: car racing, motor racing, automobile racing. Auto racing has existed since the invention of the automobile. The first recorded race was in 1867. By the 1930, racing specialists had been developed. There's the Indy racing cars, there's the sports cars, and things like that. My question to you: the first race took place in 1867. What is the oldest operating motor speedway in the world? The very first automobile race was in France, but America really turned it into an industry. So I'll give you a clue. The first functioning and oldest operating motor speedway in the world is in the United States. Any idea where it is?
Is it in Alabama?
It is not. You might think so with all the stock cars that are down there.
It's a good guess.
What about Daytona?
Nope, not Daytona. I'll give you a clue. It had its first race on September 11th, 1903. September 11th, 1903. No guesses?
Detroit?
No, not Detroit.
Give up.
The Milwaukee Mile, right here at State Fair Park. It is the longest continuously running racetrack. Let me see if it's in the world or in America. In the world! The oldest operating motor speedway in the world, the Milwaukee Mile. In my youth, they always ran the Rex Mays Classic there, which was the week after the IndyCar Series in Indianapolis. But there you have it. It's the Milwaukee Mile. So we actually have kind of a distinction in auto racing. Before we sign off today, we're going to ask you, what do we have coming up that we can look forward to in marketing? You had such a wonderful event on Tuesday. Will things like this be an ongoing thing for you? And if so, do we have any hints what might be in the future?
I was gonna say, we're still recovering from Tuesday, but I think we should maybe keep it a surprise.
Okay, all right,
But we'll let you know.
okay.
More to come around the holiday times for sure.
But let me ask you, you're 100% occupied
Yes.
and you are 100% committed for Water Tower. What do you do to prepare when there's nothing to prepare for specifically? I mean, generically, you can prepare for marketing, but what do you do when there's no unit available to show?
We have a lot of work ahead of us to make sure that that group in the new 30 that are spoken for have the resources that they need to make the move. So I would say in October, that's a big focus for us to really kick some of that off and start to make some of those connections so that when we get to that point in time, they feel prepared and ready to move.
Okay, and do you have any insight? Is construction proceeding the way people anticipate? Are we still looking at a July move-in of our 30 new neighbors next year?
We are at this point in time, so obviously we'll see what the future holds, but again, I think CG Schmidt's been wonderful to work with. They're doing a really nice job of keeping us informed whenever they hit a roadblock so we can work through that together. But yeah, we're still anticipating for July. We are not going to move all 30 in at once, so we'll make sure that so everyone can have the best experience. We'll kind of stagger that a little bit.
Excellent. Good. Well, for our audience today, I want you to know that we've already got next week's show already set. And our guest host next week, do you know who it is? Have I shared with you who the guest host is next week? It's a surprise. It's Team Jamie. And Jamie is a merging of two names. So those are our guest hosts next week, and I can assure you we're going to have lots of interesting information for you. So I'd like to really thank Anna and Heidi for coming in today. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. Hopefully the crowd will grow. Today we ended up in Water Tower because your resident council was meeting in Lindsay Hall. But next week I think we'll be back in Lindsay Hall and hopefully we'll have a larger audience. But you folks were great with your participation today. We look forward to more people coming in, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
As always, I'd really like to thank the executive producer of Trivia with Mike, and that is Stacy Abbott, President of ECTV, Tyler Gudex. Once again, my great co-hosts today, Anna and Heidi. I'd like to thank my producer and editor, Scott McFerrin, and I always like to sign off now. You're probably getting very familiar with this, but one of my very favorite actresses of all time, you both have heard this already, so you'll be able to shout it out, was Betty White. Wonderful actress from television, from movies. The Proposal, I've said this many times, one of my favorite movies, for no other reason other than that Betty White absolutely steals the show. And if you've not seen The Proposal yet, I highly recommend you do. She passed away in January of this year, 2 weeks shy of her 100th birthday. And she became known in her later years for offering words of wit and wisdom to her friends. And her favorite, which is my favorite as well, she highly recommended that everybody get 8 hours of beauty sleep every night. Unless, of course, you were ugly. And in that case, she recommended... she recommended to get 9.
Get 9.
Get 9. So there you go. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.